Court of Health out, and the thought was to start what we've done now is a code generations project, generations collaborating for the common good through dialogue, mutual mentoring, and engagement. So that's what I've been doing the last year, and that kind of brought me through Bevan to the network. Okay, excellent, excellent. Well, I'm sure you'll find it really valuable to connect with like-minded people doing aligned work. And welcome, Cynthia.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome. Where are you dialing in from?
I'm calling in from Norwalk, Connecticut.
Connecticut. Okay, so we've got the US covered, and Cullen is from Hawaii, and I'm from London, UK.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes, yes. And what's your involvement with the network, Cynthia?
I'm sorry?
What is your involvement with the Encore Network? What organization are you part of?
Yeah, I actually just joined.
Okay.
And I was encouraged to join by Marty.
Yes.
Marcy encouraged me to join.
Excellent.
So I thought I would join and see what it's all about.
Excellent. Great, great. Well, it's a pretty vibrant network. And as Marcy probably explained, we've recently sort of separated organizationally from encore.org, but have very much like a best friends relationship in terms of the connection. So it all works, I think, rather well. So we have a few more people who are due to join, so we'll hang on. I think it's going to be quite a small group because it's informal coffee and chat on this topic. So it means we have a greater chance to talk in detail about things. And here's Helen Dennis just joining. So here's Helen. Helen is an expert in this area.
Yeah, yeah.
And here's Sarah. By the way, I want to claim Cullen. You said Cynthia and I represented the United States, and then Cullen's in Hawaii. He's actually part of the United States too. Yeah, that's true. Yes, Cullen is US.
That's true.
Well, sometimes we joke and we say, well, I think I'll go over to America.
Well, there's a funny story I just heard. There's now surfboarding that's going to be an Olympic sport, and there's this big argument about whether the surfboarders are representing Hawaii or the United States. I think they came down on it. You're still part of the United States, so you're going to represent the US. Very good. And Sarah, welcome, Sarah. Hi, where are you zooming in from, Sarah?
I am zooming in from Santa Rosa, California.
California. Okay, so you're a West Coast person.
Yes.
And I know Helen Dennis we can't see, but we think she's joined. I don't know if you can hear us, Helen.
Hi, I'm actually, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Helen.
So I'm actually at the airport.
Oh, okay.
Going to Phoenix.
Yes.
And I'm really sorry that I won't hear the entire presentation because I'm very interested in it.
Yes, so we can certainly follow up, Helen.
Will this be recorded?
Yes, we're recording. And I think this is really just the start of a conversation on this topic. It's a very hot topic, and I think it's just the beginning, Helen. So we can certainly make sure you get all the information and follow up. And,
okay, well, I'll tune in as long as I can and look forward to the recording.
Thank you. And Michael, welcome, Michael. I think Michael is on mute at the moment, but
I'm sure hopefully he can hear us. That's great. Okay. Well, I think I'll keep an eye on participants in case anyone else joins. But welcome everyone. Sarah, you wanted to raise?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I have to leave early, but I'll stay as long as I can. I just
Perfect.
have a hair appointment at 10, and that's why I'm wearing a hat. But I will have to leave for it very soon.
No, I'm sure that's a welcome appointment.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
That's great. Let's go. Here comes Barb Richardson. Just bring in Barb. That's great. And we've got Kate Seno joining us from Minnesota. Hi, Kate. Nice to see you. And Barb. Welcome, Barb. Can you hear us, Barb? And Clint Wilkins is just joining us now too. Okay, so I think we're probably at our quota. Okay, great. Don't worry if anyone has to leave early, that's fine. We'll do some follow-up notes to everyone who's joined. But I think this is really the beginning of the conversation. So let me just welcome everyone. I'm Julia Randall Khan. I'm a senior fellow with Encore.org, and having now relocated back to the US, I've brought the Encore Fellowships program to the UK, which, as you know, has been a program running for some time in the US. And our topic today is pre-retirement workshops. I'll just share my screen so that we can just bring that up. But pre-retirement workshops are a really hot topic, and many Encore Network members have said they're interested in this topic because many colleagues are involved in the design or delivery of retirement courses, workshops, sessions related to this topic. And so, as I said, I'm interested in this area, particularly because I'm running Encore Fellowships in the UK, which is a transition to retirement exercise. And we do notice that people need some additional support in terms of making this transition. I had a long career in the legal field, and I'm also a fellow at the Stanford Center on Longevity, so bring different elements to the conversation. But I'm delighted to be able to facilitate this chat today, this coffee chat today, and I'll introduce you to Cullen Hashida, who's a new member from Hawaii. Just bring in Jan Hively, who's just joined us. I'll just admit Jan in. Cullen is an expert in the field of gerontology, and he'll introduce himself to you shortly. But before we do that, I'd just like to explain what we're going to cover today in our hour together. As I said, this is very much a topical issue. Many members have talked about wanting to get more involved and more knowledge about retirement planning activities. So we wanted to take the opportunity to raise awareness about Cullen's recent paper, which Cullen wrote as a sort of bringing together of resources and concepts and themes around the topic of retirement planning. And so we thought it would be a great idea to be able to obtain members' feedback on the longer term value of this as a resource for the network. So what we're going to do today is just sort of hear from Cullen in terms of Cullen's paper. Let me just get rid of this. I'll just get rid of the chat. Participants, because we're all here now. So we're going to hear from Cullen and Cullen's paper. Then we'll have a sort of a Q&A. I'm sure there'll be some questions about the paper that Cullen has prepared. I'm not sure if everyone would have had a chance to dip into the paper, but Cullen will cover all the key points. And then in the sort of the theme of our coffee chat, really like to hear from you about ways we could potentially gather more examples, keep this as a resource that's up to date, maybe share it as a dynamic list of resources for members of the network, potential publication, whether we could collectively develop some kind of best practice around it, but just open discussion, open chat, given that this is such an important sort of anchor topic for many members of the Encore network. So we really wanted to sort of start the discussion today, and then keep it as a live conversation going forward, bringing in your expertise and knowledge on the topic. So that's by way of intro. Cullen, I'd like to hand over to you now in terms of being able to introduce your paper and yourself and your background, and then we'll go into our Q&A part of the conversation. So Cullen.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm not sure if you could refer to myself as an expert. I'm just someone that's very interested in this entire area. What had happened, I've been involved with senior care for about 45 years now, but most of it has been with long-term care. I used to be a nursing home administrator at one point in my life, but in any case, several years ago, I had written a paper on the state of active aging in Hawaii, and our United Way program in Hawaii took that and decided that they wanted to provide some financial resources to see whether or not some efforts at implementing the concepts that we had in that paper or that white paper could actually take place. And so consequently, a request for proposal came out. This was like around in 2016. I had written a paper in 2014. And as a result of that, I worked with a healthcare facility, not a nursing home, to submit a proposal for an active aging program. And basically it had three components, one of which was to start an awareness campaign to promote the whole notion of active aging. So we did.
I'm just going to step in and say, if everyone could go on mute while Cullen is talking, because we're getting some feedback from someone who's probably on the phone, I think. I think it's
okay.
Okay, thank you.
So I did first part of this had to do with an awareness campaign. So we did some things on television, media, websites, and that sort of thing, just to promote active aging as a way to pivot away from aging as sick care, only as sick care. The second thing that we wanted to work on was an infrastructural piece having to do with an active aging resource directory, because most resource directories for seniors have been around, list of nursing homes and adult daycare, Meals on Wheels, assisted transportation, and that sort of thing. There was really nothing available in a collective form that discussed or provided opportunities for those that were retiring or that were still active to pursue, activities or things that they were interested in. It could range from things having to do with exercise programs, social clubs and social centers, information about wealth management, information about purpose, and so there were various kinds of programs throughout Hawaii, and we wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to find them. The third piece that we wanted to work on was a pre-retirement workshop, and what we found was that there were many pre-retirement workshops going on in Hawaii, most of which have been focusing around financial matters, right? How much one would be getting from the Medicare program or from your 501c, your 401k program, your annuities and that sort of thing. So it provided that type of information, and also provided some information about health benefits that one could expect from Medicare, Medicare Advantage programs for some people, and maybe some of the other services that might be available for seniors, as far as health services, for example, for veterans, for example. But as far as a non-financial pre-retirement workshop, we had a lot of difficulty in finding examples of that. And so I spent a good part of a year working with an assistant to just go through the literature to find out what's there, what's available, because before I could actually offer something, I needed to kind of learn as much as possible about what was available. And so I spent about a year just going through this process. And let's see now, what I wanted to do was to just point out, there's this, I don't know if you can see this.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe if you put it into full screen mode. Thank you.
Yeah. So I won't go through all of this stuff that you folks are very much aware of. But what we were looking at was this encore period, right? So we got the childhood period, the adulthood, midlife, the encore period, and older age. That whole period, this encore period, of course, was not really discussed that much. And so we were trying to see whether or not it would be possible somehow to create a workshop to address those individuals that were going to go through this period. I was able to conduct to date 5 workshops. Obviously, it's not a sufficient number, but and it's been quite difficult to fill these workshops completely. Initially, we had groups with as little as 10 and as many as 20 in these workshops. We in the first 4 that we had, we charged $50 to participate, and so obviously even with $50, it was not going to be generated. It wasn't going to be generating enough revenues to keep this thing on a sustainable basis. But we had the grant that we depended on in order to keep this thing moving forward. But we thought that by having at least a small fee, people would take the course seriously and attend all sessions. So that was something that we did. I spent some time looking at the literature, as I mentioned, and I had a chance to talk to various people like Margaret Newhouse, who had done quite a bit of work in this area, and I'll share with you some of the different workshops that I was able to find. Sarah Gerber, for example, who's participating in this, has also done some work in this area. But there is this person named Paul Erik Kinback in Denmark who had come up with this particular diagram here, and he suggested that perhaps non-financial pre-retirement workshops are a shortcut to an active aging lifestyle. We've got so many people that are retiring now in great numbers, but oftentimes, some people are pretty clear with regards to what they want to do. Many people, however, are not, and there's this sense of uncertainty with regards to how best to spend the rest of their lives, and oftentimes there's this reference to the fact that maybe the first year or year and a half to 2 years, there's a sense of euphoria, stress, there's stress reduction, decompression, and people enjoy this time to go out and, let's say, travel, play golf and do that sorts of thing. But after a while, of course, traveling, continuously becomes expensive, as well as perhaps too redundant after a while. So there's this period where people are still searching. I had a friend once who told me, Cullen, I'm 62, I'm going to retire early. I probably have another 20 to 30 more years to live. But, Cullen, I don't know what to do with my life. So, we got this kind of concern. And as I mentioned, much of the workshops that have been going on and that continues to go on and supported by government, state and local government, as well as by large companies, that focus around financial wellness and maybe health insurance benefits. And that's pretty much it. And they just tell you now you're on your own. So for people that are trying to figure out how can they rebrand themselves, how can they find a new identity, it becomes a struggle. And there's nothing or very little that's available in terms of helping people make that transition. We've got that transition for high schoolers, entering into college or finding some sort of career path, with SAT tests and, scholastic aptitude tests to determine whether or not you're scholastically, oriented or maybe mechanically oriented. You've got vocational counselors that help you. They've got, some people want to enter the military and so on. So there's a whole variety of things that are available for people that are young and entering into their careers for the first time. But when we hit 65, and looking at this next 20 to 30 year period, there's almost nothing available. It's like falling off a cliff. So the idea was that pre-retirement workshops, non-financial pre-retirement workshops, can be a way in which we can somehow help the active older adult find purpose, clarify, do a 50,000-mile checkup as far as their life skills and, their life paths thus far, and then make some clearer determination with regards to which way they want to go, whether or not it's work, voluntary work, financial independence, and self-reliance. Anyway, so this was at least a framework that this person, Paul Eric Tinbach, had suggested to me as a reason why we should look at these workshops as a shortcut to active aging. What I had when I looked at the non-financial pre-retirement workshops, there were a whole variety, and they continue to grow in numbers, I'm sure, all the time. And I was looking at about 30 or so, and I can share with you later. If any of you are interested.
Barb speaking.
I beg your pardon?
Barb, I think you need to go on mute. I'll put Barb on mute. Okay. Sorry, Helen, carry on.
Okay. So for those that are interested, I have a spreadsheet with a whole variety of these non-financial pre-retirement workshops. Some are just 2 hours in length, others are 8 months in length. So there's quite a variety, and I sort of just for the sake of my own purposes, sort of classify them in terms of some that I would consider to be comprehensive, in the sense that there were some that tried to address some very broad issues that include things having to do with an awareness campaign in the general community, that included a senior information handbook on active aging, for example, and as well as the workshop itself. So that those were quite comprehensive, and those were some that I heavily depended upon. And then there were others, many that were just face-to-face type workshops that were generally about 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes 2 months in length. Some that did cost, quite a bit of money to participate in, but those were all face-to-face type workshops. And then there were others that were online, synchronous, meaning that an instructor spoke, and you could interact with the instructor at a specific time, and there were asynchronous ones that were basically prepackaged, and participants could watch the prepackaged lectures or the information at will, at their convenience. And then there were a variety of self-help manuals and publications that were also available. Now, this whole area, as I wanted to emphasize, is continuing to churn, is continuing to grow considerably. Here are just some examples, and I apologize for not including those that you are more familiar with, but one that I was particularly impressed with was by Margaret Newhouse and Judy Goggin, called the Third Age Life Planning Toolkit. Hans Grumanson over in Iceland had created this, the BALL project, that was part of this comprehensive approach, and he had coordinated with Spain and with Poland, and they had gotten some funds from the EU to pull this project off. So that was quite impressive, and I depended heavily on Hans's work. AARP has something called the Road to the Rest of Your Life. Mark Skies has something called Evolve. I'm not too certain whether or not it continues to be available. The NCOA, National Council on Aging, has a very good program called Aging Masteries Program, but it's not specifically for those that are pre-retiring per se, but it certainly is focused around living an active life. So that certainly is fits into what I was looking at. Encore Career Handbook. Betsy Marcy is also, the author, I believe, of this, but I was talking closely with Betsy on this. And then Paul Erik Tinbach from Denmark had written quite extensively on this pre-retirement counseling, a shortcut on active aging. And this is published, and it's also available online as well. When I looked at some of the concepts or the topics that were covered, these were some of the things that I was able to identify. And I think this is part of the challenge, that is to try to see whether or not, if we were to look at this whole area of non-financial pre-retirement workshops, above and beyond, information about what you're going to get from Social Security or what your Medicare or your health plan will provide. What else do people need? And this is what I found. Well, there was some discussion on the longevity bonus. That is to say that people need to understand that they've been given a gift of life, a gift of 20 to 30 bonus years. And the question then becomes, what do you want to do with that, right? So that awareness is an important part of, I think, this whole workshop. Second thing that also was discussed often was trying to find a new identity, to rebrand. Who are you, now that you don't have a job title? And part of it was also trying to push back against ageism that kind of forces you to, in a sense, accept and acquiesce to a role that perhaps people want you to play, that you should simply act your age, so to speak, and that type of perhaps attitude or that kind of advice oftentimes tends to limit our ability to grow. The third had to do with financial fitness. There's not enough time in a 4-week class, obviously, to deal with financial fitness completely. But obviously, if you run, to live long is great. To run out of cash is a curse. So obviously, there has to be some discussion with regards to financial fitness. And if one needs further advice and direction, we need to provide information as far as where we can get that information. Another related part having to do with health and wellness is also important. And health and wellness, of course, goes beyond, includes medicine, but goes much beyond that. It includes, emotional health. It includes, let's say, it includes nutritional health as well. And as well as exercise. But that's a discussion that again can go into considerable depth, and a workshop of this sort can sort of just touch on the surface and then perhaps provide some suggestions with regards to where else can you get further assistance. Another important part had to do with relationships and networking and connections. That is to say, as we begin to lose some of our loved ones, we need to find ways of reconnecting in order to remain well ourselves, since loneliness oftentimes is very corrosive. Lifelong learning is also important. Leisure and self-management, purpose and meaning, and fourth, age planning. There were just, I have two others that were also mentioned, but not as frequently. One having to do with the timing of retirement, and another having to do with housing, downsizing, and then relocation possibly. So those were also topics that I did find in some workshops. And needless to say, to cover all of these topics with sufficient depth and assistance, to those that participate, is kind of difficult in say just 4 weeks. And the courses that I taught, the workshop that I taught, were basically 4 weeks in length, 2 hours each. And I spent probably no more than about half an hour to 45 minutes at most with an overview. And then I did come up with some questions, and we had breakout sessions where the groups basically had an opportunity to talk among themselves to find a way to hear what others had to say with regards to.
All right, B 1330, welcome aboard. Smaller numbers first, please. Phoenix.
Okay, so then the last thing I wanted to point out before we open up to some discussion is some issues that still exist. I shared with you a copy of a paper that I'm drafting, and my hope is I can find among you, and maybe those that you might be able to suggest, somebody that might be willing to help to sort of further improve on what I've sort of drafted so far, so that we can share this information with a larger community. Okay, and one issue has to do with the adequacy of what I've sampled. So what I had was I reviewed about, as I mentioned, 30 workshops, and most of them have been from Europe and the US. I've been having the hardest time finding examples from Asia, this is simply something that needs to be worked on in terms of coming up a much more robust sample. And then even within the US and in Europe, there are many cases that go way beyond the 30 that I had identified. So certainly this is something that is in need of work. The second has to do with this whole issue with regards to teaching methodology. Some of the workshops that were comprehensive provided fairly detailed information with regards to adult learning teachings, styles and approaches. And this whole area, I think, is worthy of further discussion with regards to what would be the best way of trying to convey or impart knowledge and skills to this population. The third thing has to do with infrastructural support. And by this, I mean, it relates to the workshops that I had identified as comprehensive workshops. That is, those that recognize that in addition to having the workshop itself, if the larger community is not even aware of the fact that this transitional period is one that is not well understood or appreciated and not acknowledged, and so there's a need to have some discussions about this, feature articles in newspapers, maybe presentations at conferences, articles written by by those at the university, courses taught perhaps, maybe public access televisions having programs that focus on active aging and so on. So a general awareness campaign, I think, is in keeping with this whole effort, because that then will make people much more aware of the value and the need and of non-financial pre-retirement workshops. Related to this is also after having taught the class, as I mentioned, if a class is between, say, a month to 2 months in length, there's insufficient time to provide the kind of detailed information that one needs. And for those that are seeking opportunities in the community to volunteer or to assist with a particular cause that they're interested in, we need to have resource directories created, which have not yet been created yet. And so that's the infrastructural work that's necessary. So those are just two examples of the kinds of things that might be needed. The last thing I wanted to point out was the need for evaluation research, because to the extent, and there's very little that has been done as far as evaluation research is concerned. I've done 4 or I've just completed 5 workshops, and right now I'm conducting some evaluation research on that, and I think within a couple months I'll be able to share some of that with you as well. And in that study that we're doing, we have a pre-test. I have a post-test at 4 weeks after the end of the 4th session, and then I have a second post-test about a month to 2 months after the last session, as a way to determine whether or not some of the ideas that we'd like to impart to our participants is taking hold, whether or not change is taking place among our participants. If we can collect good data with regards to evaluation, if there is evidence of impact, then there's an opportunity then to take some of this information and go to the health plans, go to the unions, for example, that have large numbers of people that are retiring, go to various other groups that are interested in supporting older adults, and use that the data basically as a way to leverage and to obtain financial support to continue this work over time. And that way, perhaps there will still be a need to charge, and I think charging even a small fee is a good thing to encourage people to take what is offered seriously. But I think this will also provide an opportunity for policy change as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically that's the message. Anyway, this is all that I wanted to spend time sharing with you right now, and thoughts that you have, and people that any of you that might be interested in helping me take this to the next level so that it becomes something that can be published, shared with a larger community, that would be greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you, Cullen. I mean, I think, it's fantastic to have a deeper understanding of the background to your research, the aims of it, and then actually be able to open this for conversation with our Encore network, because as I said at the beginning, it is a topic that is very relevant to many of us. What I'd like to do now is to sort of open the conversation in the chat, because what we would love your thoughts on is how we could develop this resource that Cullen has started to bring together as a resource for the Encore members, Encore network members, and really get your thoughts, ideas on how best to do this, how best to disseminate it, how we can perhaps create a more dynamic repository of examples of programs under the different categories that Cullen has identified. So really it's an open discussion with your thoughts in terms of how we could, as a collective, as a group of Encore network members, develop this in a way that would have value and sort of wider awareness to people who are interested in this topic. So sort of open the conversation. I know, Sarah, I think you have to leave, but I know Cullen mentioned that you have expertise and a lot of knowledge on this topic already. Is there anything you'd like to share before you have to drop off? If you come off mute, Sarah.
Yeah. I think that Cullen covered pretty much the gamut of what those of us who have developed pre-retirement or post-retirement workshops have done. I love the idea of evaluating the reach and the efficacy of it. I think a lot of us are doing kind of the same thing. I've been focusing on other things and not really holding my workshops for quite a while, but I think they all tend to cover a similar and very important arena, and that's the non-financial planning for later life. The one place that I guess deviate a little from most people is that, to me, it is planning for later life. It's not just planning for the next stage, which might be a career as a volunteer person, or starting a new business, or just a host of other things, but it's also planning on being an older person. Mm-hmm. And I think that is an important element. And I guess once I latched onto that as an important element, then I kind of went in that direction rather than staying with the just post-retirement issues that Cullen has mostly elucidated here.
Thank you. And I think if you want to share any of your courses or details of programs that you're aware of, please do send them through, and we can add them to the collection. That would be really useful and be able to dip into your knowledge. Cullen, I think you could just stop sharing so we can see everybody. That would be great. And I've got a couple of people want to chat. Elizabeth and then Cynthia. Cynthia, do you want to go first?
Oh, okay. I think the whole idea of the pre-retirement is really important. I would love to try to get I'm very interested in teachers, educators, because that's where I come from.
Yeah.
And I think that a pre-retirement type of workshop would be great to offer the union in my school district.
Okay. And
I would love to try what you have done. I love the idea of the pre-test and the post-test, and then following them after they leave the work to see if it really worked. So I would like to communicate with you so that I could offer that to the teacher union here in Norwalk, Connecticut.
Perfect. No, thank you. I'm glad that's got a practical impact for you.
Yeah, then we have additional data.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. And Elizabeth.
Thank you for this. I think it's long in coming in terms of somebody looking at this from the big picture. As I said on the chat, just yesterday, I gave a presentation to 2 classes of leadership Howard County in Maryland on Zoom, just explaining the longevity dividend and the fact that they have these years. And the reaction when people finally get this idea in their head is amazing. If it's not, and these are people of all ages, but a lot of them said, my gosh, this is what I'm going through with my parents right now. So the need for this initial, I call it aha moment,
Mhm.
has got to be part of an awareness campaign, because
Yeah.
I think one reason people don't want to think about it is because they go right to old age.
Mm.
That's our conversation in our country. You retire, you're old, you plan on what you're going to do. That's really important. But I think if we can give people exciting adventures along the way in terms of what comes next, then planning, as Sarah was talking about, for what comes after that might not be that difficult. So I see this as a step-by-step process. And I'm also offering, as a faculty member at Northeastern, runs a job in a program in instructional design and adult learning, that I'd love to help in that area, because I have students that we could put on this if we wanted to, design students. So
Well, this is exactly, that's fantastic, Elizabeth, because this is exactly what we wanted to find out from network members about resources who could help us, you know, with the deeper evaluation on this kind of thing. So we'll definitely follow up with you on that. Thank you very much. And I see some other people have got their hands raised. Barb, you've got your hands raised.
Yes, I want to just say how helpful this is. I'm in Indianapolis, and I'm in the process of establishing some kind of Encore initiative. So putting together logic models and plans to present to organizations. So this helps me take a whole chunk. I just charted it all out, and part of it was just this exploration stage. And to have this as a resource helps that lift. I mean, it takes away a lot of the stuff that I would have had to do the background to be able to articulate what that would look like. You know, whether it is a 4-week course or it is some kind of sabbatical, or we have Lily Endowment here, and they support more of a sabbatical for people in certain careers. And so one of the ideas is to provide some kind of framework for a larger kind of exploration at post-primary career. But either way, this all fits into it, because in my framework, we're talking about just kind of that introduction, but also having something that is more in depth. So thank you.
Perfect. Well, that's great. I mean, perhaps you could share with us your framework as and when it's available, because that could be some useful research and examples that Cullen could build in. Okay, thank you very much. John.
Hi, this has been so good. I'm trying to reach out to Cullen and to Elizabeth, saying, hey, we need to connect.
Good, I'm
Cullen,
glad.
one of the slides you showed, the topics, I've created a program called The Prosperous Modern Elder with the subtitle saying it's more than just financial. And I'm going, oh yeah, it covers all of those things. And Elizabeth, I wanted to reach out to you to say, how can I have students actually look at, I mean, I've created courses myself, I've got no experience in course development or instructional design. It's just, you know, over the years, I've been playing with this and started off actually with the Encore Career Handbook back in 2015, we put on a course. So I love the conversation that's happening here, the people that I can connect with. And Cullen, an aha moment for me is I was thinking of reaching out to individuals with my program rather than going to groups, you know, like a union or a company that's looking after their folks who are coming across into retirement. And for me, my tack is we should be starting our own fun and meaningful ventures. I use the word venture on purpose, not business, but a venture. It could be like, you know, building a school in Guatemala or an orphanage in Egypt or music for inner city kids or whatever. But that's, I think, the best way to be fully engaged in rejuvenation. I don't call it retirement. I call it rejuvenation.
Rejuvenation, yeah.
In the next, you know, 20 or 30 years. So thank you for putting this on.
Good, no, great. Very welcome.
What's it called again?
What's it called? Sorry, yes.
Prosperous. I'll put it in the chat. Prosperous Modern Elder. And my venture is called Play at Creation.
Okay, play at creation. Perfect. It looks like you might be a musician, John. You've got a piano right by you there.
Actually, it's ukulele. That's one of the things
Oh.
I'm adding into Prosperous Modern Elder. We
Okay.
need to add music self-made, and the ukulele is a gateway instrument.
Fantastic.
So simple to
Fantastic.
learn.
Yeah. Perfect. I mean, I think that we've covered so many topics here, and I think in areas, I was reflecting on the paper, and areas that I think would be worthy of some further analysis are obviously the role of universities and colleges, and we've talked a little bit about that. I mean, I had the privilege to be able to do the Stanford Distinguished Careers Institute program, but Kate is leading in Minnesota. Many other colleges and universities are now involved in this kind of transition course at midlife, and I think that's an area that we could dig into in a bit more detail. The other area that I thought would be worthy perhaps of some is entrepreneurship, and I'm not sure if Jan might want to come in on this, but certainly as people are thinking and looking ahead, actually doing their own businesses, getting involved in sort of that kind of energetic startup world is something that appeals to many people. And we know that successful founders are usually over 40. So I think there are different topics I think that could blend quite well, with this kind of analysis. But has anyone else got any thoughts or observations, particularly in relation to how you think we could develop this topic as a resource for members? I mean, it's great that we've got the one-to-one sharing and connections being made, which is exactly what the network is all about. But I just wondered, as an organization, as a network, whether you think there is value in being able to post this as a resource on our website, add to it as a dynamic resource. I mean, Kate, you may have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I just want to say I've seen Cullen's paper and it is just terrific. I mean, he's done such a great job of doing a scan of what's happening in this space and the different approaches and how long sessions are. And I definitely think we want to share that with our members, because I think it would be a jump start for what you're all thinking is adding these kinds of programs, or even maybe expanding some things you're already doing. But I think a key is trying to make it dynamic and putting it in, a part of our website where you can click directly to resources and can kind of explore around that way. So we do really need to look at, how to do that. I mean, we're still new as an independent network. And so we're still putting building blocks in place on just, our membership database. And I mean, there's just a lot of pieces, but I think this is a key area where there's tremendous potential for creating something that is, Cullen's paper right now is very usable. And Cullen, I assume you're okay with us sharing it with the people.
Oh, absolutely.
And we can go ahead and send that as an attachment. You can look at that. But I think having it be dynamic, and then you may know of resources that have emerged since Cullen did all of this research, I think is going to be really important. And then I just also really agree wholeheartedly with Cullen and others who have mentioned this, but it would be great if we could also be furthering some of the research on this is, what is effective and understanding what people really need. So I, just really want to wholeheartedly say thank you to Cullen for pulling this together. But I think it's really our starting point to go beyond this as a network.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. No, I agree.
One of the things that I guess was my hidden agenda in all of this was the search for opportunities for retirees or pre-retirees to find purpose, but purpose beyond themselves and not purpose for self-enrichment. I guess I am concerned about, I see the potential for older adults that are retiring, representing a tremendous amount of, skills and talents and connections with the community and experience and many, and oftentimes even financial independence, with our pensions. And at the same time, we've got, younger people that perhaps look at the need to pay for Social Security and have a certain level of, resentment perhaps for the fact that they may not be able to appreciate the all of the contributions that they're making down the road. So there's possibility for some tension or some grievances, and so I'm kind of wondering whether or not there's a way in which we can make all of this a win-win type situation. By giving back, we become healthier. We live a much more, meaningful life, as well as creating a society that is much more sustainable over time. And so, those are things that concerns me. And so if we can make that kind of a transition as well, I think that would be great.
Mhm. That's right. Cullen, I hope it's okay. I'm putting your email in the chat so that people can get in touch with you direct. Yeah, and Jan, you have your hand up.
One of the sources that Cullen suggested was Evolve. Actually, Evolve stemmed from the Vital Aging Network, which was created in 2001 and by the University of Minnesota. Evolve stemmed from a course called Advocacy Leadership for Vital Aging. And it did what you were just suggesting, Cullen. It was offered through various branches of the university, at each location, they had a leader, and the central initial classes of the 8 sessions involved sessions that would come out of the Minneapolis St. Paul campus through the network, so that different individuals could identify their strengths, identify their interests, learn about the knowledge that you have suggested in your introductory session. And then they would have to have a project, 3 months to work on a project that they come back to report on with the people. Out of that then came several other networks, the Creative Arts and Aging Network, which is now called ArtSage, Vital Communities Network, which works along with age-friendly communities. But I think that that is another, really does talk about the possibilities that you mentioned. Evolve now is more of a set curriculum that is offered primarily through junior community colleges.
Okay, thank you, Jan. That's really useful to know. Michael, is there anything you wanted to add from your perspective?
Honestly, I'm just trying to take this all in. There's so much out there. Cullen, that was fantastic. Thank you. I was just talking to Elizabeth, who had some great ideas on kind of that aha moment. And I don't know, just since you asked, does Kate, how do people get engaged with like UMAC around this idea, just with a simple idea of understanding I got a lot of life left and how do I use it effectively?
Yeah.
So Michael, do you mean the Encore Network or do you mean University of Minnesota Advanced Careers?
I was thinking about UMAC, about your program specifically, and kind of as one good example of people who really do kind of get the idea of there's a lot of time left and I'm not really sure exactly what I'm supposed to do with it.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, and I think as Julia said too, and Elizabeth, who's not on the call now, she's also looking at higher ed and getting engaged with this. But I do think higher ed is a great place to explore a lot of those potential interests, because when you think about, what we find with our program is an 18-year-old comes to campus not always being sure what they want to do with their lives, and then they explore and they get exposed to a lot of different ways of learning, and then through that process come up with some directions. And we find that the same questions that 18-year-old is asking about, what do I want to do with my life? What skills do I have that the world needs? How do I make a difference? How do I navigate this new world of work where it is not just one job and one career? And our people are asking those same questions, whether they're looking at an Encore career and moving into the workplace in a different kind of role, or they're looking for meaningful volunteer roles and finding that right kind of opportunity that takes advantage of their skills. So, we think higher ed is a great place to do this, but I'd also say, and especially, I think, Cynthia, when you were talking about teachers, I think there could be a lot of potential to partner with employers on this, because employers, while they may focus just on financial assistance, I mean, we do also really see a need in the workplace to maybe do some of that education around, those bonus years, and just some of this stuff could happen at work, and maybe at work it's part of, some of the continuing ed that employers offer to their people, or part of some of their retirement planning, or even affinity groups in the workplace. But I think ties with the workplace could also be another venue for us.
I think that's absolutely right, Kate. And just a couple of observations there. When I was at Stanford, I actually participated in a retirement planning workshop. It was called Next Stage Roadmaps, which was run for Stanford staff members who were approaching retirement. Some were 10 years away, some were 2 months away. But it went through many of the topics that Cullen identified in terms of things that people need to think about as they prepare for that next phase of life. And the other thing to mention, that from the UK perspective, we have something called the midlife MOT, which is a car analogy. The Ministry of Transport, you have to have your car checked every year. But this is a sort of around health, wealth, and self that employers are now using to help people, usually in their late 40s, early 50s, as a way to think about the non-financial and financial aspects of later life planning. And it was an initiative that's been tested by global companies such as Mercer, Aviva, the big insurance company. And I can certainly share information on that, because it's been quite well piloted and now is being followed through by a number of different employers. To your point, Kate, about the role of employers in terms of helping to equip their employees about this type of thinking, because it can prompt conversations about phased retirement, for example, etc. So I think it's a good conversation to have. Okay, so we're just coming up to time, so I think we'll probably have to, unless anyone has any other particular questions for Cullen. I just want to say a huge thank you, Cullen, for taking the time to share your paper with us. I think it's given a lot of us, some enthusiasm and some ideas for further connection. We'll circulate the slides, the paper again, and some of the information that's come through on the chat, which we can then continue to build on. And then I will, perhaps together with Kate, go back to have a wider conversation with the Encore Network leadership about how we can mobilize around this topic for the benefit of the wider Encore Network membership, given it's such a central topic to many of us. But thank you so much to everyone for participating and sharing your thoughts and ideas. It's been really valuable. And so I think we'll close now, but no doubt we'll be continuing on this topic in the near future. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Colin.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.